Welcome to the Finance Leader Podcast. I am your host, Stephen McLean. This is the podcast for developing leaders in finance and accounting. Again, my desire for this forum is that this is going to be a place for finance and accounting professionals to grow our leadership skills, because we definitely work in a complex world with very tight deadlines. On this episode, we are going to talk about how to build trust, because once trust is lost, it's hard to recover. It takes time, and you may never get it back. You can try harder and do extra, but it's going to be very difficult once others lose trust in you. I think you need to do a continual self-analysis, how you go about building trust on your team, and then recognize and apply that if you do lose trust, that you don't do those things again. As a leader, you are being watched every moment and being judged. It may be a silent judgment, but you are being judged. What happens to a team when no one trusts the leader and no one trusts each other? The team definitely performs poorly. You're not going to get the best out of people. There's not really going to be an incentive to take a risk or do anything above what is expected every day. Trust is the glue that's going to keep your team together. It's the glue that bonds you to your boss, to the senior leaders above you. Once they lose trust in you, you're not going to be effective. You're not going to be able to get anything done. They're not going to give you any special projects. They're not going to give you anything to get ahead or any opportunities to move forward in your career in that organization. Same thing if you lose trust with your team members, they're not going to do the best for you. They're not going to take any risk. They're just going to do what they need to do at a minimum level to get the task done. They're going to be in protection mode. They're going to look out for themselves. You're going to risk high turnover on your team. There'll be some that will stay. They'll just come in, get their task done, and leave. They won't do anything extra for you. They'll just meet the deadline, meet the minimum standard, and they'll move on. But your high performers, they're just not going to tolerate it. They're not going to deal with it. If they can't trust you, they're going to move on, and they're going to find another opportunity, and then you're just going to be stuck with a team of just mediocre performers who don't really care whether you're trustworthy or not. They're just going to come in, do their stuff, and get done. Trust is the daily expectation that we will all act ethically within our human relationships. Trust is expected above all else. If you lose trust, you will lose your team. I want you to think back to a time when you did not trust a manager or senior leader that you had. How did it affect your performance or potential for staying with the same company? How did you feel dealing with a senior leader that didn't quite do what you expected them to do as far as the relationship you had, the trust that you expected? How did you feel about sticking your neck out for that individual or putting your best effort in? Most of the time, if a senior leader consistently doesn't show that they are trustworthy, then you're going to be very cautious around that person. You're not going to give them your best or give them an insight, or you're going to be very guarded with what you tell them and how you approach them. If you're working on a project with them, you're going to be very guarded when you go to present a project, because you don't know what angle they're going to take in the presentation. If they've showed consistently that they won't back you up, or they steal credit for an idea, a number of other ways that you can lose trust. So that's the same thing as we approach our own team members who are looking at us. If we don't show that trust, we don't show how we can do our best to bring out the best ideas, or to know that they will know that we have their back on a tough situation or a risky project, or if they're dealing with a personal issue in their life and we have given them our word on something, and if we don't follow up on that, what we have said, what we have promised, then how do you expect them to do their best and stay with us in the long term? They're just not going to do it, because if it happens to you, you wouldn't do it. That's where we come to behavior and expected actions of yourself in a leadership role that you have. This is where we come to the expectation for you within the role that you have as leader, that we must personally set the best example of character and work ethic. We must be consistent. We must have honorable behavior. We must treat people well. We must live up to the word that we have said, the promises that we have made. We must live and operate every day with a high level of integrity. That is, if someone comes to you with a problem or an issue, that we hold that trust. We don't share that information with others. That person has then opened themselves up to us and maybe need some help solving a problem. We don't go then spreading that news around to everybody. That's what I mean by having a good integrity, good honorable behavior, and we must be consistent with that every day, every moment, every interaction we have with our team members. A few other areas that will help us, especially in setting the best example, is the time management. We don't want to be consistently wasting the time of our team members. We must respect others' time. We must show up to meetings on time. We must deliver of what we promise. If we're going to deliver a piece of information or say that we're going to set up a time to discuss an issue, then we follow through with that. Got to follow through on the commitments we have made, on the promises that we have made. We must have good business practices during the day, not sloppiness. We must hold our meetings when we're supposed to. We must have some kind of predictable, consistent behavior every day and during the week. We should be living the example that we want our team members to live, and also living the example that our boss expects and then our senior leaders expect. We must continually be trying to set that solid example, high example of integrity, high example of consistent behavior, honorable behavior. Another area that we can commit to building trust within our team is that we must communicate relevant information quickly. Some people in leadership roles hold on to information because it makes them feel powerful, makes them feel like that they have something up on the rest of the team or their peers. And some people believe that it gives them an edge or an advantage, that by knowing certain pieces of information within the company, that they can use it to divide up people or maybe pit people against each other. These are horrible practices. These are done by people with no integrity, no honor. And we're not going to do those things. I want us in this finance and accounting community to not do those bad practices. We need to learn to share relevant information quickly so that our team members know what's going on. They can then use the information that they have in solving a problem that they may be having for the company on a project team, routine tasks that they have. If we know that something is coming down the pipeline that's going to affect a project, then we need to share that information. Now, I know that there's some sensitive information that can't be shared, or the timeliness is critical to when we share it. We've been told that in advance an announcement's going to come out in a couple hours. That's critical, and we need to hold on to that information. And I completely understand that. And also, for those of you who are working in public companies, releasing of information is critical so that you don't violate some type of SEC rule or some kind of other regulatory violation. I completely understand that. But when we share information quickly, it builds confidence and trust for our team members because they know we're not withholding something. Team members will start to, in their own minds, try to figure out if you're withholding information from them. Something that's affecting the teams, something that's going to affect the performance of the team, or the integrity of the team, or even withholding critical assumptions or facts on a project. If they feel that you're withholding that information, they're not going to trust you. So that's why I encourage managers, as much as you can, push information down to your team members as quickly as possible. Anything relevant, anything that will affect a project, anything that will affect reporting that goes on, anything that affects their normal everyday rhythm of tasks. Share that information, and you're going to get more respect. You're going to get more trust. They're going to know that you're doing everything you can to give them the tools and the information necessary to do their jobs even better. And they're going to come back and they're going to give you even more effort. Another area that will help build trust within the team and also build trust across the organization and up and down in our chain of command is that we must deliver results within the deadlines. You will lose credibility with your boss and senior leaders if you can't deliver results, if you can't meet deadlines. That's the same thing for your team members. If we're working on a team project, even individual tasks of your team, if they can't meet their deadlines because something that you have done or promises that you have made and they can't deliver on their deadlines, then you're going to lose trust on your team. So that's why I continually to encourage, be consistent and know achieving those results that you're expected, complete the tasks that are required, and meet your deadlines. And that way you won't be losing trust in that regard. You're also going to lose respect across the organization with your peers if you can't meet, if you have tasks that require sharing of information across the organization to your peers. If you can't meet those deadlines, then you're going to have no respect from your peers, and they're not going to do anything more for you, because if you can't meet your deadlines, then don't expect them to meet their deadlines. This last area that we're going to talk about when building trust on your team is about being fair and unbiased in how you treat your team members. I would say of all the things that we've talked about on this podcast episode, this is probably the most critical. How do you treat your team? And do you treat each team member fairly? Everyone has filters and see the world through a certain lens. We were all raised differently. We were all raised a certain way. And that the way we were raised does affect our mindset, does affect how we view the world, does affect how we view others. So we must be continually knowing and understanding what filters and what lens we are using as we look at people, as we interact with people, as we lead others, as we give direction and purpose. What filter are you applying your thought process through? What filter are you using for the input that's coming into your mind? How are you viewing people? Are you viewing each team member fairly? Are you favoring one over another? And a lot of this may be unconscious. You may not be realizing you're doing it. That's why you must be more self-aware of how you're interacting with others, how you're viewing others, your body language towards people, how you're interacting, how you're speaking, tone of voice. Are you making eye contact? Come and ask you for something. Are you treating them fairly? Are you viewing someone differently over another? And again, once you become self-aware and you acknowledge that you have a filter, you then can ensure you are treating everyone fairly, that you can start to see how you talk and how you act and how you interact affects the team that you have. We must treat everyone the same. We must give everyone the fair opportunity to perform well. We must give everyone the same tools. We must share information equally along the team. And we also address performance issues fairly across the team. We don't favor anyone over the other. Now, you're going to have different performance levels across the team. Just be self-aware in making sure that every team member has access to the same thing, has same access to you, the same access to information, tools, training, so that they can also perform their best. If you are doing that and you still get a performance issue, then it's a performance issue for that person. So I'm going to encourage you to continually do the self-assessment. Am I giving everyone a fair shot on my team? Because you want to continually fight the bias. We all have it. We all have some kind of bias. And if we acknowledge it and we know it, we can do better. We can lead our team better. We can ensure that we're giving opportunity to everyone to excel on the team and in the organization. We're giving access to special projects to the people who deserve it, to the people who are really, when it comes down to them and their performance, as long as they have access to everything, and it's up to them to decide how to use those tools and that access and that information. If they still fail, then it's on them. But you're going to make sure you're doing it. So I want to encourage you, self-assess, be more self-aware, watch what you're doing. One of the things that I learned several years ago when I was trying to become more self-aware was my listening skills. I worked hard at more active listening, changed my body language, changed how I view people or how I look at people, and I give them that equal access. I'm listening to them, and I'm not being flippant about what people are saying. It's still something I continually work on, good active listening. All right, so in this episode, we talked about building trust. And want to close with trust is expected above all else. No matter what else you're doing, you've got to work on building trust. Because once you lose trust, you will lose your team. Hey, you can find this episode and past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and a lot of other platforms. You can download the show notes at stephenmclain.com. Next episode, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, and that's mindset. And that's how you see yourself affects your overall potential. Your mindset affects your long-term potential. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please join our community on Facebook, the Finance Leader Podcast Facebook group. This will be our community to grow within the finance and accounting profession. Until next time, you can check out more resources at stephenmclain.com. You can sign up for my updates so you don't miss an episode of the show. And now go lead your team and see you next time. Thank you.